Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality, and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest on this week's episode is Sneha Patel, who after years of a corporate career in many roles and sectors, is making the transition to be a life, mindset and transformation coach. During our conversation, we talk about the reactions she encountered when she started to speak out, how her corporate experience gave her insight into the mindset of the average worker, and how industries have been converging over years to create a technologically controlled system. Sneha also shares how she feels called to her new work and how this time in history is a call to action for all healers. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel you're most her?
I feel that when I'm sitting in my 15 minutes a day just being alone and clearing my mind out, that's when I feel I'm at my highest potential and highest energy. I just need that time away from society and away from things in general.
So important these days.
It's very important.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Higher Energetic Resonance Conversations. Before we get into it, I just want you to introduce yourself and tell everybody about how you got to be where you are. I connected with you on Instagram just because in this day and age, I think so many of us are realizing that the relationships or the connections that we've had are not necessarily serving us because we're starting to see things in a different way around the world and yet not being able to communicate that. So it's been a real reshaping for everybody. When you see somebody like stepping out and posting what they're seeing in the world and being brave enough to do so, you can't help but be inspired and then also want to have a communication with them so you have an outlet. So that's how we met. So, but share a little bit more about who you are, Sneha.
Thank you, Carol, for giving me the opportunity to be on this podcast. Appreciate it. So my name is Sneha Patel, and I have 2 decades worth of experience in the corporate world. I started off as a programmer, developer, and then I moved on to various different roles within organizations, such as business analyst, systems analyst, project manager, program manager. Now I'm currently a coach in the organization. That's what they call me. My title's not that, but I'm not a sucker for titles. I'm just a sucker for somebody who gets things done and helps people in organizations. And like you said, it is very important in today's day and age to have good quality relationships and surround yourself with people who want to do good, not only for themselves, but for society as well. I wanted to do something different the last couple of years personally, because I didn't feel that I was where I needed to be. I was very aligned to my higher self, but I was like, I'm missing something. And when COVID happened, I think there was a spark in me that just said, hey, you need to start speaking up on things that you're seeing in organizations, in the world. I have 2 young kids, 2 girls. And so start speaking up on these things that actually matter and help make a difference. Maybe even influence people in a positive way to make changes. That's one of the things that I'm good at in organizations, is making changes happen. Mm-hmm. And so I took the plunge. I triggered a lot of people, but I made a lot of good friends along the way. And that's basically what I really enjoyed throughout this ride, is meeting like-minded individuals who want to help make a better future for us and our future generations, because I think right now that's what we need.
when you did start to speak out, what shape did that take, especially you being in the corporate world? Over the years, I've spoken to many women who've come out of the corporate system to go into some level of spirituality or wellness work or that kind of industry. But that was before COVID, so you could still kind of move away from that and still hide behind a level of persona. You didn't really have to reveal what you were, but then also the external world was not pushing us to the point where there was so much craziness going on that it would be uncomfortable to put yourself out there. So for someone who was just not only just kind of moving, kind of shifting around within that corporate space, but then also speaking to the wider environment and pointing out things that people may or may not be seeing and may or may not want to hear about. How did that affect, and what did you hear within the corporate response to you?
So in the corporate world, I have this rule, by the way. So most of the people that I connect with, I don't friend them on Twitter or Facebook unless I leave the organization. So, but the people that I work with in the corporate world, they pretty much looked at my post and they were fine. They read it, acknowledged it. I didn't get much reaction. In fact, the reaction that I got the most was from people that I knew personally, that those were my close friends, that they didn't think that I was aware of certain things, or they didn't resonate with what I was sharing. The first things first, I think you and I talked about this. Whenever I mentioned Trump, I would trigger so many people. And I live in California. So that's the first thing. When you say one word and everybody gets triggered, you're like, what's going on? And I'm used to triggering people, being a manager in organizations. I get it. But then how can one person have such an impact? And so that led me down a bunch of rabbit holes that I was already aware of. And then the COVID, that was another rabbit hole that many of us were kind of going into as well. So, people didn't like the fact that I was speaking up online. I think it also, they had to go through their insecurities. The fact that I was speaking up online, probably, I feel personally, they haven't told me this, but like, they had to go through parts of themselves to say, hey, how come I can't speak up? Right. So I was triggering that aspect as well, because some people that I knew were silent Trump supporters. They would message me, but then they say, stop sharing. And I would be like, why? Like, I'm trying to help people, get to the truth. Yeah. But, like, why would you want me to stop sharing? And so I feel like, and I say this to my kids and to myself regularly, people can only meet others as much as they've met themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I don't take things personally. I'm not attached, which may look as somebody who's selfish, but sometimes you got to do what's good for you. And it's leading me to what I want to do. Like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I used to say this to my close friends in my corporate job right now, which I'm at for 7 years. I said, I wanted to start a side business. I want to help people. I want to do something. And, that was probably it. My calling, I knew deep down that I needed to do something else. Maybe it was spiritually, maybe it was healing, which I've gotten a lot of messages from when I've connected, that they think I'm a healer. I'm a coach. I know that for sure. And I just like to share, that's one of the things in Awakening. We just like to share all our information with others, but you can only help people who want to be helped. That's the thing. That took me a while to realize this. And I knew this as a PM, but in my friendship circle that I had, it's like, they didn't want to be helped. They didn't know they needed help. And second of all, they didn't want help. They want to figure out themselves. And this is something that we've stated as many of us who are awakened, that everybody is on their own path in this journey. And we can't force them to see things that they're not ready for.
What I'm noticing as well, I like on my other podcast, Her Inspirations, last week I did a really deep dive into denial and just really understanding what denial was and what it serves, the purpose that it serves, but also the detrimental side of denial. And denial in itself is a protection mechanism at best, like your mind will be like, I just can't, even if people can see it at this point, because, like almost 3 years now that we're into all of this, like 3 whole years, right? Can you believe it? And so it's not even a question of now like trying to send people links or things like that. It's got to the point now where the ramifications and the consequences of many of the decisions that people made are actually happening around them. And how, you know, there's only going to be so long that you can pretend that these things are not happening. But yeah, I still see people holding on and finding a way of explaining things away. And part of you is like astounded that they're so creative on the spot, but then the mind is very clever, you know, and it will create an elaborate story that you're just like, yeah, but the evidence is there, but people are not necessarily ready for it. And like you say, when people have to go through their own journey of awakening, and a lot of the journey of awakening is taking responsibility for who you are and what you're seeing in the world and the way that you're showing up, because it was very easy before to kind of like go along to get along, and you could have a nice life and just kind of meander in the middle and not really make any waves. But we're being called to something else now, because like what we've been through has been and is detrimental. And when we look back on this and when we kind of count the damage that's been done, I just wonder where those people that are still trying to like cower and hide and not be noticed, where they're going to stand in all of this, because we're all going to be affected. We're not going to be able to say that we don't know someone who hasn't come out of this badly. But yeah, denial is it protects you for a while, but then it becomes a burden because you have to kind of push so hard against the truth. And it creates your own prison, because now you're seeing it on all levels. It's like it's not about people sending you links and that you don't open their messages. It's in the world. It's like you can't hide now. So it's whether you're going to choose to kind of face that truth, face your own truth as well, in the way that, how are you hiding? How are you pretending in the world? Why do you think that you didn't see what was going on when other people did? Can you forgive yourself? Can you forgive the way that you were with other people? Can you allow these are big asks and big things to do, because it's hard to admit on any level when we've done anything wrong. You know, we need to apologize to ourselves and to others. You know, it takes a bit of strength to go there and go, listen, I've fessed up, I need to do this. But it's whether people have got the moral humanity and the moral maturity to actually face up to that. And that in itself, to get to that point, to be that strong, requires huge amounts of healing. And that's, I think, where, you know, people and coaches and anyone who wants to help will be instrumental in guiding people out of that, by just giving them kind of breadcrumbs that they need to go off and do the work themselves. It's not about government. It's not about your favorite celebrities. It's clear that these people have played us and failed us and deceived us. So we've got to pull it all back to ourselves. How are you seeing things on that side?
I agree. And the biggest thing I've seen in people that are still not aware of these agendas is that they're not realizing that the power is within themselves, that they've given their power away. And this has been a common conversation with people that I've connected with, is like, I've never had power to begin with. It's clear even in the corporate world, because when you work in the corporate world, guess what? You have rules and things you need to follow from your leaders, your bosses. Leaders don't usually force things, but your bosses, your managers, and so you're not creative. And basically, in my mind, at that point, you're robots. And I would have conversations with, you know, like-minded individuals in the organization of, okay, some people just don't want to think outside the box. They just want to be told what to do, and they'll do it, and that's all they know. And that means that they're not going to admit to themselves maybe that they have that power, first and foremost. And that power comes when they stop denying things. You know, they're in that mentality of when they've grown up, they have certain upbringings that's what defines them. That's the biggest thing. These labels that we come up with, you know, let's just say, for example, I'm Indian. So because I'm Indian, I can't be in IT world. Those are labels that you've put in your mind. You could do whatever you want. As an Indian female now, even in my 40s, I could change my career, but it's the mind is our limitation. And so when they take that power back and realize this subconscious mind that we have, make it conscious, go through all these emotions we're not going through. Then we're going to go through that healing process and becoming a better version of ourselves. We're basically upgrading ourselves. And that's the hardest thing for people to realize. That process is hard. It's like let me put it this way. When a caterpillar goes through this metamorphosis, the caterpillar doesn't realize, they may think it's the end of the light because they're, going through this dark phase. But that dark phase is meant for them to transition into this beautiful butterfly with wings to do whatever they want. That's what each human has that capability to do, to go through that metamorphosis. But they have to embrace that darkness within them. And that darkness means going through that denial, going through their emotions. And a lot of people struggle with that. And they keep themselves busy. That's the other thing, because we're in this society, we're living in Kali Yuga, right? In my opinion, where we have to keep up with the Joneses. We need to have the latest, fancy car, these gadgets, and we're so disconnected from who we are. We're looking to this external world to say, hey, okay, you're this, but that's not what life is supposed to be.
Like you say, it's got to this point that people are so checked out internally to this external direction that it's amazing when you pull away from it, when you really pull away from it and watch it from the outside. You can almost see the strings. There were like so many moments, especially over the past couple of like 2-3 years, of just like really watching things, because especially when the whole kind of COVID and the lockdowns were happening over here, I was going through so much, like I had like personal things. I was like looking for somewhere to live, and like my life was not settled. So even though when I went to work, it was like very weird, and like we've seen, we used to kind of go in a lot of coffee shops. And I remember one of the last times we like went out, me and a colleague, and we were sitting in a coffee shop, and they'd stopped us bringing our own cups, because we used to, you used to be able to bring your own mug and you get a discount and everything. But also it was so quiet. It's like being in central London, and everyone was talking about this thing. Every table was just like overhearing this thing. And even I'd be like, there was something about it that just didn't feel real to me. It felt removed, and I couldn't work out what it was. And then there were these daily evening briefings that Boris Johnson was giving, that everyone was tuning into. And watching television was like really unusual, because I just don't watch television. I've not had one for like well over 10, 11 years. I've got my laptop and things like that, but I don't watch the news. I don't get involved to that level. I always choose what I want to watch, and it's guiding me somewhere, but it's not guiding me into this. So whenever I do go to somebody's house that has like this kind of massive screen on the wall, and I'm watching it, it feels really odd to kind of watch this thing. And then also I can feel this kind of wet, like something's being sucked in, because you get, it's created for you to very quickly fall into theta state, and your brain just open, and whatever's coming out goes in. So watching some of those briefings, it was like, is this because it just kind of rang of fiction. Like before it just like had this element of, we're watching a movie, and take of that what you will, but there was something that was very like odd and surreal about the whole thing. And then when it started to play out, and then I saw how people reacted to it, like the spots on the sticky spots on the floor or in the supermarket, and everyone just standing and dodging each other, and you're just like, this is so strange. Where did people get this information from? It was like they got the information from the television, from the media. And especially if you were watching the TV, you were getting the ticker tape, and you were getting these big animations of this big circular virus that was, like if you watched it, it was like watching an animation. It's like if I watch TV and I watch like toothpaste commercials or hair commercials, where they kind of zoom in, and there's like these things that float in and like go into the center of your tooth and blast away the plaque. And it's all animation. It's all make-believe. It doesn't happen like that. And yet the same thing happened in the way to kind of create this massive psyop, a military grade psyop. If it wasn't so evil, well, people did win awards. Didn't they give him an Emmy? like Kumo? Didn't he get like a Golden Globe or something?
I'm sure. I don't. Who watches the Golden Globes? See, I'll be like with you. I don't watch TV, and I haven't watched it for years, especially because I've been in the corporate world and I have kids. I didn't have time, even though I have a TV. And anytime I did watch it, like you said, I felt like it was just putting me in some sort of a state of fear mongering. And maybe it's just part of me and my personality because I'm at work. Of my work personality, I don't like fear mongering. I try to avoid it. And I chose not to watch news for that reason. And so I got most of my information about COVID from my friends who are in the medical industry. And like I had heard when it first started, it was this big old thing. And I fell for the fear mongering for a couple of weeks. And like you said, I started observing and I'm like, something doesn't make sense. And, I stopped wearing the mask and I stopped and I saw people still continuing on. And I'm like, where are they getting this information? Like, I'm fine. I'm not wearing the mask. I'm okay. But it's because they're tuned into this TV box, or not even TV if they're not looking at it. There's commercials, there's newspapers that talk about it, that gets them in that mindset. And a lot of it is we have to just change our mindset, and what you focus on expands. If you want to be in a fear mindset, fine, turn on the TV. If you want to make your life better and get away from it, do something else, like go out in nature or read a book or listen to music, something else to flip the script in your mind. And like you said, it's a movie. It's our movie. We should create the life that we want. Do you want more fear in your life, or do you want more peace in your life?
Yeah, it like thinking back on it now, and in some ways it just feels like yesterday. In other ways it's like it's 3 years ago, but it feels like even longer when you kind of like break down all the crazy things that happened. But when you think of it, it was just coming from every possible angle. And then when everything died down, when they kind of ran out of deaths, completely different conversation. Then you had to keep the story going. So the way to keep the story going was then to have everybody walk around with some visual representation of something that they needed to be afraid of, which was where this whole mask thing came in. Again, I was just like, this isn't making sense, because let's just kind of go along with the fact, like, maybe it works. Like, if we wear these, like, this kind of like airborne thing is just not going to come and get us and we're going to be fine, right? Think about it on a logistical level, because when I was trying to have a logical conversation with someone who was like so caught up in everything, I'm like, well, let's just look at the logistics of what's happening now. So yesterday, for instance, or one day, like, it was fine. We could all go into the same bank we went into. We didn't have to wear this thing. And then 11 o'clock today, suddenly the mandates start. As time goes on, things should get better. Why are we waiting 24 hours or 4 days down the week to, like, before we all have to don this on to walk in and then breathe the air? And it's like, it doesn't make sense. But also from a logistical point of view, overnight, you could pick up masks pretty much in every store.
Yeah, some places they didn't have it, but that was all part of the agenda.
How does that happen on a logistical level? You're project manager. Things require manufacture and distribution. They need lead times.
It was planned out. This is why, if you followed me on Instagram, where I'm more active these days, it's a pandemic. It was planned completely from all of the countries throughout the world. I mean, just being in the IT industry, a lot of the things that I've noticed, most of the jobs that we have here are offshore, first and foremost. So I noticed that the people at the top, they made more money. We got less money as workers because, for one of us, they could hire 2 or 3 in another country. So that was all one part of it. The other part was you have people in other countries who are basically, they're puppets. They're not going to say anything, to go against them. Because obviously, we are funding them. We are giving them money. So you have basically robots. And, and as a project manager, I would try to tell them, wait, think out the box. But see, they were also, as I realized throughout my career jumps and other organizations, their education system, it limited them from thinking for themselves.
Right.
And combination of their education system and the environment they grew up in. And as much as I wanted them to think for themselves, like I can't force them. I could only plant the seed. So everywhere I went, I'd be like, okay, can you think for yourself? Plant the seed. And hopefully at some point in time, they got what I was trying to tell them. Because again, we can't force people to see what they are not able to see. We can only plant the seed. And then, being in the IT industry, seeing all of the links between the insurance industries, the credit card companies, the mortgage, the healthcare, all of these systems are tied together and connected to one big system that the people at the top running the show, I don't want to call them the name because I'm going to give them that power. That was part of their agenda to keep us glued on to technology. And so we don't think for ourselves. Because I was seeing what was happening to the people, in offshore countries was happening here too. The last couple of years, it became more and more. I'm like, why is this? Because I grew up with people of my generation, we thought for ourselves and we were okay to stand up. But more and more people were like, no, we just got to follow what we're told. And I think that's why, like I said, I'm different because there's an entrepreneur in me. I don't like to follow what I'm told. I am that troublemaker at work. So they put me in that corner. I'm like, fine, because I want to do what's best for people. I'm a people person. That is why I got into project management. And why I want to, I'm starting coaching because I want to help people know their truest potential. But if we're in this AI, which is the agenda, if we're stuck in this, first and foremost, we're going to be disconnected from ourselves, and we're going to be just following the agenda that they had basically created for us. And it didn't happen overnight. This started decades ago.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's hard for people to see through it, because something like this granular across all these countries cannot happen overnight. And if one thinks that the mainstream media is telling them the truth about the origins of the virus or, this working, they're so disconnected. They're so out of sync with themselves. It's going to take a long time. And that's why what is needed, in my opinion, in the future is a lot of healers, a lot of coaches to mentor people to get out of this spell. We're basically in a trance. From my perspective, humanity is in a trance.
And it's a good one, and it's layered as well, as like especially when you want to go digging into like areas of research and rabbit holes, and you can be led like 5 million different ways and come up a grain, and it requires you to you hold on to an idea until you get to the point where you can't hold on to it anymore, and you might find that you've gone as far as you possibly can go, and actually that whole line of questioning was untrue. And then but it also might feel like it was a waste of time, but it's never a waste of time, because that dead end, that supposed dead end that you went down, then informs a whole different aspect of possibility, so that at least when you hear something else, you can refer back to that, and you can kind of use it as a barometer for whether something is true or not, whether you're seeing the same kind of patterns in it, whether you're seeing the same kind of players, the same faces turn up as well. It's this whole kind of very intricate, very layered web created by forces, people, entities that understand the way that the human mind works better than we can ever understand the way that the human mind works. And there's so many trapdoors within our own mindsets. I don't know if you've ever listened to people who've been through any kind of like mind control or ritual abuse or anything like that. And a lot of the things that they will say is the way that they get abused or the way that they get programmed is that they create these mind snaps. They'll kind of like traumatize them to an extent where their mind will snap in two, or create these different kind of compartmentalizations within the mind, so that you can actually call on different aspects of that same person. Can be one walking person, but yet can have like however many different identities within itself. and within their own mind that can be then triggered by a word, or, like we're saying, like the kind of the trigger of the Trump world sends people off. If that's not entrainment, then I don't know what is. Whatever you think of him, if you're having a reaction to one single word, that's unnatural. It shouldn't be happening. And,
No.
like you should be at least able to go, not just go off into like screaming and wailing. That's totally an unnatural reaction. And it's a response more than anything that you should be like, why am I behaving like this? That in itself is a massive entrainment that has got embedded into people. But also what they create within their own mind is almost like a gatekeeper, another alter, like another altered personality, like a gatekeeper that will come up and then kind of protect that. So they're almost like kind of like creating compartments in their own mind. When that's possible to do, and when people who are well versed in how to create multiple alters in one person just on a one-on-one basis, now that we have the technology that we're also reliant on, they're like, who of us is not on technology every single day? Rarely. We're talking via because of technology. That's how we've connected. So we can't say that we're not part of it, and we don't know to how many layers deep we're being led this way or that way, and what compartments it's creating in our mind, because it's going to go back and use some aspect of trauma to kind of hook us in, because that's how you get people to remember stuff. And I think a lot of what happened over the past 3 years as well, including the pandemic, including bigger events, like the George Floyd situation, then the whole psyop that came out of the vaccinations and what they caused people to do as a result of that, and the way that they got people acting, is testament that technology is separated us from reason, separated us from empathy, separated us from just taking a step and just going, hang on a minute, this doesn't feel right, because most people are just going by pure emotion. And sometimes you need to just kind of pull your emotion out of it and look at it logically and try not to be pulled. The technology and the way that technology is going and has us all at this point in time, we're still all under the spell of technology, every single one of us, even the ones that are awake, we're still under the spell of technology. And I think we're at the point where we need to kind of get to the point where we're starting to burn our phones, and get completely out of that grid, because when the door goes down and we're completely encased in the technology and we're not using any of our innate skills to connect outside via our soul, via source, we're locked in.
Absolutely. And technology keeps us in illusions. I mean, we talk about social media. I'm thankful for it because, I've connected with like-minded people throughout this time. And I don't know if I would have survived mentally, because there's not that many of us that are awakened. And you brought up empathy, which I think is very critical in here, because a lot of leaders in organizations, they say they're empaths, but I have noticed in this whole thing, and we talked about spirituality, you could say something, but it's not necessarily you're one of them. You have to feel it and you have to be it. And that's the whole essence of this whole awakening, in my opinion. So I've actually become the empath that I said I was before, and I'm embodying it regularly. And second of all, this technology, especially for the future generations, because they're so tied to it,
right,
it's going to keep them in this false illusion of things that they have that they don't necessarily have. And they're going to have a tough time if we don't start training them to think, hey, this tool is for them to use. It's not the other way around, because what's happening is we're basically feeding these tools, these apps. We're the data. Yeah. We need to flip the script and say, hey, we use this to our advantage. And that's what I've done. I'm using social media to my advantage to share information, to find like-minded people, rather than say, hey, I'm just going to share my personal photos like I always did with my kids, their achievements, feeding more information to what they really want us to do, versus, okay, let me start and be the glitch in this matrix. And the other thing is going back to this whole, when you talk about certain words, the matrix really did a great job of depicting how society is in general, where we have a lot of agent Smiths because they will do what they're told. And then if you're Neo, and I feel like we all have that capability to be Neo, if you say the one, we have that, as long as we awaken that within us and open up all our chakras. When you do that, then you can be the one who's creating that life. But keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of people who want to be NPCs, and they're happy with that because they don't know any better. They don't know how they can be better.
And I think part of that wanting to be better or wanting to be different, whichever way you look at it, comes from a desire, and desire comes from your imagination and your creativity. And that part is being so eroded in pretty much everyone, that opportunity just to sit down and just dream and kind of think about, wouldn't it be great if I was this, or maybe I can create something like that. But the unreality that's being created in this metaverse of social media and television, and then these figures that we've outsourced our power to, because we believe that they, by nature of their status, which is purely created, know what's best for us. I've been as guilty as that as for a long time as well. And when the penny really started to drop, and I started to just unfollow people on social media, even in that unfollowing and not seeing them on my feed, after a while I realized that there was like an energy of lack that left me. Because even if you're following like your favorite music, like there was a lot of people in music that I would follow, and this is before I even kind of knew what shenanigans they were up to. It was just, if they're like sitting there posting and they've got a really nice piano or really nice house, or you can't help but kind of look at the view that they've got in their Hollywood mansion, and then you're like, that's not really my life. Where does that put me? Because then you're comparing yourself, and when you're comparing yourself to anything, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you're always going to eventually come up lacking somewhere, because that's where we always want to put ourselves down. We don't want to be egotistical about stuff. So you're always going to leave that taste in your mouth of you're not doing enough, you're not being enough, all the things where if you kind of rid yourself of their feed and their content, and actually look at what you do have and what you have created. We've all done a lot, and the people that have come out of this military grade psychological operation with their brains intact deserve medals. It's like warfare.
I agree. It has been, and it's so like psyops after psyops, and it's like, I'm just amazed at people who have survived this and are still sane, first and foremost, because it hasn't been easy. And we still get it till this day. I still have colleagues who test themselves for COVID, and they say that, they're sick. And it's a whole nother thing if they're still not becoming aware of this. But for those of us who are, it's been a ride. It's not over yet, which is why, I'm venturing into this coaching thing. People can change their life as long as they change their mindset and the people they follow and what they expose themselves to, because usually we're brought up to think in this lack mindset, that we're not enough, that we need people externally to make us happy. And then they keep attracting the same things over and over again. But you need to get out of that. As one does, they can create that life that they want. But that's up to us to change those and form those habits in our mind and do daily action towards those. You can make the impossible possible.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been doing a lot of just kind of going back and listening to a lot of the new thought authors from the turn of the century, the turn of the other century, like the old school ones like Neville Goddard and Florence Scovel Shinn and Catherine Ponder, just like all these different ones, just listening to. Sometimes I'll be people that are reading them on YouTube, and a lot of the time I'll play one in the morning, while I'm doing like my kind of morning things, and just listening to them. And they pretty much all are saying the same thing, but like we're creatures that we just need repetition. We need to keep hearing things over and over and over and over again before the penny will finally drop, or it floods out all of that negative thinking, because it's very easy for that kind of like doubt to come in, especially when we're trying to create something and a great shift in our lives, and we're looking at where we're at this moment, where you're like, okay, this is what I want for my future, and then you look around and going, okay, there's like nothing here that looks like anything that I want. But when you go back to and listening to how they talk about it, it's very, very simple work.
It's meditation, though. Meditation is key. And I find myself going back to some of the things that, you know, was written in our Vedas and in our scriptures. You know, we just need to know that the two most powerful words in our English dictionary, I am. Start off with these affirmations daily and say, you know, after that, whatever you say after it, you are literally creating that life. And so if one says, oh, I'm going to be poor, well, you're going to be poor because you're stating that, right? And so like you said, repetition. But this is the one thing that I feel like our education system is not good about doing and I'll say, I even do this to my kids, like because I do certain things, I want them to do the same thing, but that's limiting them from being their creative self. And, you know, they'll be quick to tell me, okay, I'm not you. I know, but kids, when we give them that opportunity to be creative at a young age, it's going to create magic in the future. And I say magic, but it's the law of attraction and work. That's how they can create what they want out of their life. When you tell them you need to follow certain rules and do certain things, you're limiting them from critical thinking skills, from using their analytical mind. And that means that's how the future of humanity is going to be. So it all starts with the kids, of how we're basically coaching and mentoring them to use their mind, because that is the most powerful tool. You can get me all these laptops and, you know, mobile devices, but the most powerful one is our brain. That's their supercomputer.
And you know, like I said, the powers that are the people that are directing the play at the moment understand the power of the mind and that emotion, and have used it perfectly against us for very long. But you know, then it really ramped up at the peak of it has been, well, the peak play of it has been for the past 3 years. You know, I don't think it's we can actually go back. You know, everyone wants to go back to normal. Normal doesn't exist anymore, thank God. You know, like, and some of us have just got too long a memory. You know, it's like, no, like, too much has been revealed now. There's no way that I can just, you know, go back to my level of sleep and pretend that everything's hunky-dory. It's like, no, I've seen too much, and there is so much more revealing to do, but also there's so much that we need to guide each other forward to make a better future, and to make sure that these last kind of agendas and gameplays that they're trying to do, and especially the entrapment that's trying to happen with the financial system and the currency, you know, the currency, and how technology seems that it's going to free us. But, you know, if you just live your life and just by getting a few coins every month that are going to diminish if you don't spend them, and you're living in the metaverse, and then you're living in a reality that's a 15-minute city, because these things are happening now. People went out a week or so ago in Oxford, where they're trying to really implement the first of those 15-minute cities, and they flooded every letterbox in there to just go like, yeah, it sounds like a really great idea that you can get everything within 15 minutes of your house. But then, you know, and after a while, but then they'll be like, you're only given like a certain amount of days per week to leave these 15-minute cities, and on what condition? You know, like, it's like, well, you can leave this 15-minute city 100 times a year, but what if you put up like a little contentious Facebook post, or, you know, you drop litter somewhere as well? You know, look to China, guys. Like, this is the implementation that's encroaching on us. And we should, at this point in time, we can't dispute things as conspiracy theory anymore, because that just means we're trying to tell you that something's coming up.
Well, and I think part of it has to do with some of the education systems that we have in place. I often find myself having debates with my eldest about communism and what it means. Like, they're totally taught something different than what it is. And
Right.
at the end of the day, it's like, just like COVID, it's just a flu. Like, you change the word, you change the whole mindset of everything. At the end of the day, what's really happening is this government is trying to control us. You can call it communism, you can call it socialism, call it whatever you want, but that's the end game, where the government's going to control every move that we do. And we need to get approval for them, whether we can do it or not. And that's the new world order agenda. Whether if it's, you have your latest shot, whether you have, your posts on Facebook or social media or meet their standards, everything. There's going to be a combination, or you can't spend money on food because you've hit your limit. Like, that's what's going to happen unless people realize this game and say, hey, I'm not going to do this, and think for themselves and step out of it. The more people step out of it and create this, the less people are going to be part of that. And I've mentioned this. I think there's going to be two realities that play out. People that don't want to step outside their comfort zone, because it's difficult, because then when they do, that means that people may not like them, and that's basically their vein of existence, and that they need to be liked by people. But if most people keep in mind, the people who actually make things happen, not everybody's going to like them.
Exactly.
They change that mindset, then they can create that life that they want. Then they'll have that in essence is for the freedom. That's what the freedom fighters are actually fighting for. That freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. So the government cannot control you. Freedom to not take these, the freedom to spend money, the freedom to grow food, the freedom to think for yourself. All that's the whole essence of the awakening, from my perspective.
No, I agree with you. And we're so near to the switch now that if you're not paying attention, or if you want to stay comfortable, or if you don't want to rock the boat, or you don't want people to say anything and call you names and not like you, then the gate will close behind you. And who knows if there's a way out, really, once you're locked in and everything becomes digitized and like you'll be locked away from thinking for yourself, because thinking for yourself will become punishable. You'll lose money, you'll lose freedom, what little freedom you'll have when you're in a system like that. You'll be disconnected from source. And so, like, what will that feel like? Is that okay? Is that going to be comfortable for you? So, like you say, I see that there are people that are pulling away, where they're just like, we can't keep trying to like rattle the doors and shake the bells in front of the people that don't want to hear. There's going to be a point where, like, it's getting too close and we need to step away and start something different. And for the stragglers, come along, but maybe there needs to be that, and it depends on your soul's fate, I feel.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think we all signed up for this, and I believe the people that we've connected with, I think we've done this before, and we're connecting because we're on that frequency. And this time things are going to change. Maybe it didn't work out the way we wanted to in our past life. And so there's going to be that. And we signed up for this. All of this is happening in divine timing. Like, I wanted to do this side business for years, and what COVID came at the perfect time. And I'm like, here I go. Like, I just knew, like, I had to like jump the ground and start doing this. Like, there will be a spark inside people when it's the right time.
Well, thank you. It's been a great chat. And is there anything else that you want to say about your coaching and anything that you're offering at the moment, and how people can get in contact with you to partner with you?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me on my email address, snehapatel@gmail.com. I'm offering 6 months to 9 months programs for those who are interested in shifting their reality and basically leveling up and making changes if they need courage to stand up for themselves or their family or any situation. And I'm also working on other tools to help them out in this process. So stay tuned. I'll keep you posted when I'm in that. I'm a sucker for solfeggio frequency music. That has been very instrumental for me. I use a lot of mantras. And so I'm going to kind of have something out there for those who are interested to help in their spiritual journey, because I do feel that there's going to be some folks that will want some help in the future.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you're there at the forefront of it. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm glad to connect with you in this form and capacity. This has been great. And you know what? The best is yet to come.
For sure.
Thank you, Sneha, for joining me on this episode. Thank you for listening. I also want to mention Sneha's website address, which is Samskara Coaching, SAMSKARA coaching.com. You can reach out to me if you like on all social medias. I'm on Facebook as Carol May Whittick, and my website is carolmaywhittick.com, CarolMaywhittick.com. Also on Instagram as Casmic, and on Telegram, Her Conversations and Inspirations. We're still growing there. And also, for anyone who hasn't noticed, I've also started a sister to Her Conversations. This one is called Her Inspirations, and this is an evolution of the solo episodes that I used to do on this platform, but also digging in deeper to some spiritual guidance and coaching inspirations. And also at the end of each episode, I include a practice, a meditation, visualization for you to use. So until the next time, take care.